Hello everyone and welcome to Don't Be Bored. Today I'm joined by Jeff, the designer of The Profiler, a brand new social deduction game for 6 to 15 players, as well as some other games as well. So welcome to the channel, Jeff. Please introduce yourself and let us know a little bit about the game.
Thanks, Oliver, for having me on. I am Jeff Ignatowski. I am the owner of Scorpion Lair Games, the creator of Killerstcg, the card game. I've got like 4 other games out there, and now we have our new game coming out called The Profiler. And so what we do is we do lots and lots of kind of murder mystery games, all based around true crime. So something that has always fascinated me my entire life. I've always been fascinated by true crime, as well as game creation. I've been creating games since I was like 8 years old. And so now I am 44. And so, well, I'll be 44 this year. I don't want to give myself any extra time that I don't need yet. But yeah, I've been creating games for a long time and have several games on the market now.
With bluffing and deduction at sort of the core of The Profiler, what games would you say it draws inspiration from, and then how does it actually differ from them as well?
Okay, so The Profiler is a social deduction game, and we drew a lot of inspiration from Werewolf, Ultimate Werewolf, from Bazier games, as well as Blood on the Clock Tower, and games like Mafia. All large party style social deduction games. And we wanted to keep a very similar kind of format. So it is when you play The Profiler, you're going to get the feeling of like an Ultimate Werewolf game with a few changes, right? So there's going to be a day and a night phase. Now, whereas in Werewolf and games like that, during the night, the werewolf or the demon will kill someone. In The Profiler, that's not necessarily the case. The killer will actually have a deck of cards, and the moderator will have them choose a card every night from the killer opportunity deck. That will determine whether they kill during that night, whether they don't kill at all, whether there is a release of a new crime scene that's found, or if they kill during the next day. So that would mean that they would have to slip a card to one of the other players and kill them during the day, and do that under the sly and not get caught or not look guilty, right? So it throws a unique twist into how the killer has to kill, because I think that if we want to stay authentic to the idea of true crime and the idea of these types of things, that, you know, they don't always kill every night, right? They don't always do that. They change their mind, or they may have to have a hasty kill during the day. So I really wanted to ramp that up and show something different from the other games. The other big difference, when I played Ultimate Werewolf and when I've played Blood on the Clock Tower, one of the things that I don't like is that in the first 2 turns, there's really not very much to do, right? When you play those games, you don't have very much evidence from the very beginning of the game. So it's really hard to start investigating, right? You're asking questions that nobody really has any answers to. So the first 2 turns really kind of drag on, and people are trying to decide, do we kill somebody, do we not, you know, and it ends up being really hard. Once you get into the 3rd or 4th or 5th turn, then it's a lot of fun, right? You have a lot of information. Well, with The Profiler, we wanted to start out at a crime scene. The moderator will give you a brief introduction into what has happened at this crime scene, and will lay out 3 pieces of evidence. So from the very beginning of the game, in turn number 1, you are going to wake up and you are going to dive right into the crimes. So I think that that is just a huge leap in social deduction games, and really gets everybody involved right away.
Ooh, those crime scenes, that does sound like a really cool sort of on-theme way of introducing information. I do like the sound of that. What would be one standout moment that you have from playtesting?
Probably my one standout thing is directly related to what I said before. is that immediately everybody like put on their detective cap and was immediately investigating the crimes. And so when I originally conceived of the game, I really wanted people to almost get an education in criminal investigation. I wanted people to feel like they were playing a live version of CSI, and they could really dive in and start looking at everything and looking at all the evidence and, what does this mean and what does that mean, and, coming up with all these hypotheses of the crime. And I thought that that was really, really important to get people to start thinking critically and to understand what investigators really go through when they're trying to figure out all of these different pieces of evidence, which may be correct or may not be correct, right? They have to sift through it and try to figure out from their own experience, from their own knowledge, what this could possibly be and what direction it's going in. So for me, that was the one standout thing. I got to see everybody's process. I got to see them thinking about it and making decisions and questioning the different evidence and trying to understand what was going on and piece together this puzzle. And that, for me, was a huge win. That was when I knew that the game had merit. That's when I knew that that we had really done something. When I saw everybody do that. The other thing that really got me is we play tested 3 different games, right? 3 different scenarios. 2 the first night, 1 the second day. And in that first night, everybody, with the exception of 1 person, stayed for the second game, right? And so it was amazing to me, and we had other people join in, but it was really cool that people liked it enough that they wanted to continue playing. They wanted to continue to see if they could figure out the story. So I think when something is that engaging, I think it's really cool as a designer to see that happen. Because I was at a game convention, right? There were 100 different games being played, and all of those people could have got up and played something else, and they decided to continue playing the Profiler. And that was really cool for me.
How did you find balancing the game with the sort of roles that people play as in sort of a standpoint of fairness and fun?
As far as balancing is concerned, that's always a really big concern when you're playing, when you're creating a game and when you're designing, because there has to be good balance. There's nothing worse in a game when something is so incredibly overpowered. And so in this game, it's interesting because being a social deduction game, the killer really doesn't have, unlike a lot of other games, the killers have a lot of power, right? Or the werewolves have a lot of power. They have a lot of ways that they can do things. In this, the killers can still deceive, they can still hide, but it's much, much more difficult, I think. And so it's kind of neat to see that. Now, when you get to a larger game, when there are henchmen involved, and maybe there's more than one killer, I think that the killers get a little bit more powerful. They're always very strong because they can confuse things, but there are certain elements in this game that make it very, very interesting. Like, for example, there is someone that you're going to choose early on, maybe on the opening night, to be the scribe, right? And so they're going to write down all the evidence. Now, that can change during the game. You can decide that that person is not trustworthy and they cannot be the scribe. But what happens if the killer is the scribe and they're writing down all the misinformation, right? And so there's an interesting dynamic that happens when that is the case. And we had that happen during the playtesting, and it was super cool to see. Because, I knew all of the things that were going on, but nobody else did. So it was cool to see that interplay between the people. And so I think that, it's really important to balance things. And I think in this kind of game, there's a lot of interesting balance that has to happen. I didn't find it particularly hard, mainly because I played a lot of Werewolf. I played a lot of Blood on the Clock Tower. And so I knew the direction I was going. I knew how to balance those things. I think as we get into some of the expansions, because I already have plans, when we get into some of that, I think it's going to create some really, really interesting things. Like, for example, when we enter in like the copycat killer, right? that is really, really going to change things up. And how do you deduce whether it is an actual power and control killer or a copycat of the power and control killer? That's going to be tough. So it'll be interesting to see how all those elements fit in and how we can get people to figure all that stuff out. It's fascinating.
It sounds like you've got some balancing in the future coming in with expansion content, so that's really cool that you're sort of planning ahead there. Now, what would be one tip that you would give to a sort of upcoming budding designer?
The one thing that I can tell people, and it's the big problem that I see with designers. A lot of people have great ideas, right? They have great ideas. They have great games that they're trying to bring out. I think the biggest problem is often they get in their own way, because at some point you just have to go. Not everything is going to be 100% the way that you want it. And I think that often many of us designers are perfectionists. We have a very clear vision of what we want to do, and we try to figure out how to get there. And sometimes that gets in the way of actually producing a product, right? And sometimes you just have to go. And you have to let that product become and live its own life, right? It has to be spoken into existence, and then it takes on a life of its own. And there will be things that you never even thought of that will come up that will make the product so much better that you never even considered before. But if you waste time in trying to make it all right from the very beginning, you will lose all of that extra creativity that other people bring to the table. You miss out on that. And I think so. Yeah, I think that's the one thing is sometimes it's better to do it faster and get it out there. If you have a clear vision and you have a clear idea, make it happen. Don't wait. There's no reason to, right? There's a million ideas out there. There's a million directions to go. Play test it, and then let it go. And let it take on its own life.
That's a really great tip. Hopefully budding designers listen to that and get to that playtesting and sort of getting their game out there sooner rather than later. Now, when can people expect to see the Profiler on Kickstarter, and where can they go and find out more about the game?
The Profiler will hit Kickstarter on March 12th. So not too long from now, the Kickstarter will be out there. It'll be ready to rock and roll. We already have the pre-launch up. You can go to Kickstarter and search for the Profiler, or you can go to probably the easiest way to do it, where you can find all of my stuff, is you can go to Linktr.ee/Killerstcg. And that will take you to everything. There's a link on there that will take you directly to the Profiler pre-launch page. Go there and sign up to be notified of the launch. And on day one, you can get in there immediately and get to ordering.
And before you go, just a little bit of a fun one. What game would you say has the best meeple in it?
One of the games that I made, it's actually an expansion for Killers the card game. And it used to come with this awesome meeple. And so I don't have access to that meeple anymore, which is a shame because I loved it. But it was my police upgrade for Killers the card game. And it came with a little cop meeple. And I thought that was fantastic. So, but barring that and it being my own game, probably my favorite meeple. Oh, man. There's so many games with meeples. It is necessarily the best meeple, but probably my favorite game that incorporates meeples has got to be Final Girl. I am a huge fan of Final Girl and all of the expansions, and I'm waiting on Series 3 to come now. I think it is a fantastic system, and they do such a great job with a solo game. I love it. I mean, I have it up on my shelf right over there. So yeah, eagerly awaiting Series 3 to come out.
And, well, that about wraps us up today. So thanks, Jeff, for coming on.
All right, there you go. Thanks.
Importantly, the links mentioned earlier are going to be in the description box down below, so you can go to that Linktree, etc. to find out more there, nice and easily. You don't need to go and find them yourself. And well, until next time, have a great day gaming.